So I'll introduce myself a little bit first, and then intro Louie. Pass it over to him, my partner Louie. So I founded a company in the early 2000s called Obscura Digital with my co-founder Travis Threlkel, and we were working with creating new paradigms and visual technologies and experiences, and with the aim of shifting perspective and exploring kind of new states of consciousness. So we started out our first kind of prototype was doing surround video projection inside of a dome. We started earlier than that in the late 90s. I was doing a lot of testing out at Burning Man with bringing people together inside of geodesic domes and spaces and having unique experiences, a lot of music, performance, things like that, but really with an eye and focus on the human experience inside of the kind of geodesic spaces and kind of certain environments that we created. And from there, Travis and I worked together over about 17 years, spanned all sorts of sort of different mediums and ways of expression and tools. We were doing large-scale multi-touch screens in the very beginning of that paradigm around when the iPhone first came out, looking at how you visualize data in unique ways, and then started actually following what some of the Parisians were doing or in France with projecting art onto buildings. And so we kind of went after that and started doing some of the largest expressions in that around the world. And around 2012 or 2013, we met Louie. And Louie was working on his second film. Louie Psihoyos here is the Academy Award-winning director of The Cove and Racing Extinction. I'm not sure if you guys have seen either of those films. And then most recently, he produced Game Changers with James Cameron, which was #1 documentary on Netflix for quite a while, just this past year. So hopefully some of you have seen that. And I'll let Louie talk a little bit more about his organization, but just to say that really we sold the company in 2017, and I realized that I had to just focus 100% on climate awareness and driving impact towards the climate crisis and solutions. And so Louie and I kept pushing forward on some of the projects we were looking at, and we put together a big project with the UN that was supposed to launch this last fall a year ago, and then COVID hit, and so we got delayed. And then now with the context of everyone sort of, I would say, more open to hearing these types of narratives and expressions at a global scale, and understanding the crisis that humanity is really in around climate and other factors that are driven by our embedded systems of capitalism and colonialism, that the world, I think, is in no better place to hear these messages right now. So we're going for our biggest, boldest expression yet, which I'll tell you about in a little bit. But over to Louie.
Yeah, well, as Chris says, I guess to continue this ocean theme, I run an organization called the Oceanic Preservation Society, and Frederick might because he works. I see the Sea Shepherd T-shirt there. We work with Paul Watson quite a bit, but we really start. Film, I think, is the most powerful weapon in the world that we have to create cultural shifts. When we did the film called The Cove, and I'll put it in the, I don't think I can send a chat for some reason. Oh, there it is. Okay, I'll put the films in the chat if you want to see them. The Cove. It's about dolphin hunting in Japan. When we did that film, they were killing about 23,000 dolphins every year in Japan for human consumption. And after that film, I think dolphin hunting for human consumption is down like 97%. So films can really shift. And when we did Racing Extinction, I think 36 million people saw that film the first day it was on Discovery. And probably about 100 million people have seen it. These projections that we did at the end of the movie, that again is in the chat, called Racing Extinction, We have, I think, about 5.5 billion media views just in the English language. And so I could see that, if you want to change the world, there's a lot of good data that shows you only need 10% of the population, not 8 or 7 or 17. Only 10% is the tipping point. 10% of the population, 100% committed, is enough to sort of light that spark. And when we did a film called The Game Changers, it's a film about plant-based super athletes. The first 30 days that film was on Netflix, searches for plant-based diet on Google Trends went up 350% worldwide. So films are powerful to shift consciousness. And then by putting these films on the buildings, which Chris will talk about, we have an opportunity, I think, to reach humanity at scale and try to cause the shift of consciousness that we're talking about. Because you do a great movie, it's still not 10% of the population, even if it's like Avatar. And a movie about 9-foot long blue people, as much as I love James Cameron, isn't going to shift the needle that you need to. But I think on the building, and when we do these massive projections, we have an opportunity to make everybody on the calls here's world go round, because it gets everybody on the same page in a very short amount of time. When you think about the amount of advertising you need or the amount of films that you need, you'll never be able to reach that scale at the time that you need. So what Chris is to talk about, I think, is the sort of our moonshot mission for the environment. And I guess I'll let Chris talk about that.
David, shall I continue on? I was going to play a video and let everyone know just a little bit about what this looks like. Whoops, I think I shared the wrong screen here.
Whilst he's doing that, I want to just tell you that Game Changers changed my very carnivore husband into a vegan. So thank you for that.
You're
Awesome.
welcome. Yeah.
Great.
Oh, and oh, there we go. He's ready.
Yeah, I'm going to share. This is the last project we did, which was just ahead of COP26, and we hope might have at least put some expression out there as people signed the Paris Agreement. So this was on the Vatican back at the end of 2015. It's about 200,000 people here gathered in the plaza. So this expression here was, at that time, we were really focused around species loss. It was kind of the first narrative, and then it expanded as Louie was doing Racing Extinction. The story kept unfolding, and Louie was learning, through interviewing people and really kind of uncovered a much bigger story, which was the Anthropocene, the potential for the 6th mass extinction on planet Earth driven by humans. And with that, we started to bring in some themes of really, the human impact on the planet, and also showing the human impact on, the most marginalized people on the planet. So that was just starting to get in there as a theme. So what we're doing now is expanding the narrative and really focusing on the climate crisis as it currently sits right now. I'm sure a lot of you, being close to this space, know that there's a lot of climate scientists out there that say that we have less than a decade to turn around, where we're at in terms of CO2 emission and really get a handle on things, or we will likely have runaway climate change and not be able to do anything about it. It'll be a self cycling prophecy moving forward. So our current project is on October 22nd, 23rd, and 24th at the UN in New York. We will be projecting for 3 hours a night for 3 nights and live broadcasting to the world. And you can see here with Jane Goodall in the building, it's the Empire State Building on the left and the Chrysler Building on the right. The interesting thing is not just the scale, but the metaphor of the building that we work with. So in this case, the United Nations building represents the only building on the planet where all the governments of the world are supposed to gather together and work together. And, as we know, that doesn't always go swimmingly, but as a metaphor for us, this is the one place where we think that we can express to the world that this is a global problem and also make it a globally inclusive event and then broadcast it out to the world. So we have, this is a view from Gantry State Park across the East River. And this is where we'll have our crowds gather. So there'll be a stage here with live speakers. We're inviting climate youth activists, indigenous elders, and climate luminaries, people such as Jane Goodall and Sylvia Earle. And this is, some examples of what this stuff can look like. Our focus is around 3 pillars, which is winning the race against climate change, eradicating extreme poverty, and conquering injustice. We're really telling an interwoven story at the intersectionality of all 3 of those, how climate change impacts the most marginalized and really the driving forces that push, all 3 of these elements together. And then with the highlight on specific key areas such as oceans plastics, we're looking at solutions and really starting to tell some of the stories around how we can solve some of these issues. This is just another theme here, building off of what Louie did with Game Changers to tell the story around animal agriculture and what we can do by completely changing our food system. And of course, some of you said in your intros, working on regenerative agriculture and land stewardship projects. So we want to highlight the solutions and some of the best projects happening around the world and show the possibility of them scaling. And obviously these, as we know, all these themes are interconnected. If we can reduce animal consumption and stop needing to clear cut, then we can focus on regenerative agriculture and all these solutions work together. So really focusing on telling the story, of some of these key solutions. We're going to be bringing in some big name artists and musicians to do some particular expressions, and also, some of the biggest youth climate activists. We have on board with us Shea Bastida. I don't know if any of you guys watched the Biden climate conference, but she was the closing speaker to one of those days. She's our global youth ambassador and helping us connect with the whole youth climate movement so that we can tell their voice loudly. We have pretty massive communication goals. We're trying to reach really as many people as we can on the planet. We're hoping we can get 100 million live viewers on the live stream. The Arab Fashion Week had about 200 million live viewers. So we figure, people focusing on climate change, hopefully we should be able to get, close to that. And then just quickly, here's some of the, content themes and speakers. Also, we have a program that's going live on UN Day, which is the last day, in Al Wasl, which is the largest immersive dome for Expo Dubai. So this will be actually running for 6 months. We'll have like an ongoing program around that. And Louie, do you want to add anything here?
Well, you actually designed the dome at Al Wasl. That's an interesting bit. Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, it's really about using this moment to create a global moment to create the change that we need. That's what excites me about what we do. When we start a film, I tell the crew that we're not making movies, we're trying to start movements here, and this is the biggest movement that we've ever worked on. The guy that's in charge of global communications at the UN said that this is probably the most important event that the UN has ever done for global communication. So it's exciting, but it's also kind of daunting. We only have 6 months to pull this off. So Chris and I and a couple others, we've been just talking to people, trying to figure out if there's who in our network could help finance it, because it's fairly complicated to do this. I mean, it looks pretty simple, like one big projector, but Chris and his team, it's actually, they'll probably have about 120 or more 35,000 lumen projectors. So it's like over 2 million lumens of projectors, 120 of them all tiled together to make a single image. It's very complicated. But here's the other thing is that, like Jane, this is a still image, obviously, but we'll have speakers talking in real time, so that you can, like Jane Goodall will be 38 stories tall, but once you plug, it will be live streaming the sound. So it'll be music and sound also being pumped in live. And if we get 100 million people live over 3 days, we hope to, another order of magnitude more than that watching it, and most people will see it live streamed.
We're also
Louie and Chris, Voyagers exists for people to help each other out. So how can the networks represented in Voyagers and the people themselves who have achieved all sorts of things, how can we be helpful?
Well, I would say that, our main goal right now is funding. And I know that there's quite a few people in this space that, have, worked on funds. But, when we did the Game Changers, again, if you haven't seen that, that's about how, plant-based food is really one of the biggest solutions to human health and climate change, et cetera, et cetera. My friends in the, that have, plant-based companies, Impossible Meats, Beyond Meat, they said that they had to add like new factory lines after the film came out. That the demand for meat, for plant-based alternatives went up, like I said, 350% worldwide. But that also meant there's a huge business opportunity when you think about, how to achieve scale. Films are a great way to do it. So if there's anybody there in your networks that that you're trying to get finances involved in this is going to float everybody's boat that's involved into the climate space. It's just a collateral is that there'll be more money to be made. There'll be more opportunities for everybody because it starts elevating, magnifying these messages and, in ways that, like I said, no advertising can do. When you have an event like this on the UN, it's authentic. It's going to capture people's news feeds on social media. We had 600 people. We had 600 media outlets at St. Peter's Square at the Vatican.
Louis?
Yes, can you hear
Just
me?
a quick question. Hi,
Sure.
yeah, thank you. I'd love to see if I can help. Do you have any information about the project, like anything that you can share, at least semi-publicly with us, so to share with investors? That's my
Sure.
first question. My second one is, what kind of investors? You've just mentioned, the kind of the plant-based brands. Are there investors that you absolutely don't want involved?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we have there's a process that we have, a vetting process that we go through for every project that we do. Obviously, you want to get people that are already in that space and they're sympathetic to the cause. But right now we're working with potentially YouTube and another plant-based company are the main sponsors. Chris, why don't you talk a little bit about the opportunities? I mean, for coming in for.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, in terms of the types of companies that we'll work with on it, if it's a commercial, brand or something, we want to be really careful to make sure that we're not going to undermine the power of the narrative and show that we're, marketing. Of course, we won't work with any oil companies or, that's at the far end of the spectrum. Banks is kind of, there's been a lot of things out there around banks that are financing the destruction of the biosphere. So, depending on the bank, we want to be a little bit careful about that. We have had some good talks with head of sustainability at Citi, and they seem to have their heads in the right place and be making decisions towards the right direction. So we're, it's kind of a case-by-case basis there. We are talking to a lot of foundations and high net worth individuals just from our own networks currently. So we hope to have, a big piece of it done through people that are just, want to support the project for those reasons. And yeah, in terms of the opportunity from a brand perspective, it's getting the massive brand glow being associated with the project that's really would be a legacy project for them to be involved in, that they can show their involvement across, their websites and kind of all of their social media and really get a tremendous, PR value. We can't project logos on the UN. We have to do this in a very artful and integral way, so that they're just really supporting the project and getting the glow through being associated with it. We can give them some visibility on the live streams and press releases and things like that, so they will get recognition. And also on the UN, we'll be giving special thanks every night in the credits. So it's actually for the right type of company. On the brand side, it's pretty tremendous what they would get for their money because of just the global reach and the connection to the UN and the integrity of the subject matter at this current time. It's like it's not just climate change, it's social justice and a lot of important issues.
So if you guys are able to share some info, I don't know, through David, or I don't know how you would share it, that could be pretty helpful. I might have some ideas.
Cool. I did post our deck to the Climate-Tech WhatsApp group. I could, if David thinks appropriate, I could repost it so it's for closer to present. And also, if you want to reach out directly, I can send you more additional information, kind of more specifics around how we're structuring things for companies.
Apart from financing, what else do you need help with?
Yeah. So I've already heard wrote down a few people that spoke earlier about what you guys are up to, and I just think that what we're trying to do overall, over this next 6-month period and also going forward, is to build a network of people that are helping us in terms of narrative, really making sure that we're getting the right messages out there, and then also telling the right stories of solutions. So, if there's projects, let's say regenerative land projects, land stewardship projects that are happening that people have, documented, or there's a particular wonderful story about how new types of projects are emerging that could, if they were scaled, could make a massive impact. These are the types of stories we want to tell. And so we will be, Louie will be out there with crews, interviewing people, and really uncovering some of the most important stories that will really move the needle and highlighting them as, part of the narrative. So that's a key thing. We do have right now we have a pretty tremendous group of partner companies that are helping us, like, for instance, One Earth, who's really got their heads around the climate science and kind of what the narratives are there. The fact that, the difference between 1.5 degrees and 2 degrees actually means hundreds of millions of people that will either be dying or suffering. So, these are things when they're at the COP negotiating these things, it might, sound easy, but what we're really talking about, if things don't get handled well, is mass human suffering at the most marginalized places on the planet. And I'm sure most of you guys know this stuff already, but it's, so we're really trying to uncover these key narratives and make sure that they get out, because the reality is most of the planet, most people on the planet don't really know how dire the situation is. And so, didn't mention earlier, but one of our key things here is raising the alarm, sounding the alarm on climate change. So we're really going to be highlighting really where things are at, and then offering up solutions to show that we do have a way out of this, but it's got to be taken very seriously, you know, and not just by people on the front lines like all of us. You know, we need the movements to scale, the social movements to scale, and push our politicians and our corporate leaders to do the right thing. So that's really our goals out of the project.
How are you going to measure results beyond simply social media engagement, number of people watching? What to you is success?
That's a good question. As many people as we can reach. So, you know, because as Lou was talking about scaling social change and shifting perspective and consciousness, I think we'll measure our results partially on how many people on the planet we can reach with our messages. Of course, they have to be the right messages. It's really tricky because, like, a lot of NGOs, of course, you know, they want very measurable results in terms of like a particular project that's done a certain way. But our project is about global communication. You know, we're like the advertising arm of the climate movement or something like that. So although we are going to have a connection to like an impact site where people can make, you know, personal decisions around, you know, changing things in their lives, we all know that the personal change, if everyone on the planet does a certain amount, it doesn't get us even that far of where we need to go. We need the systemic change to happen. So that's where we believe that the mass communication and consciousness shift is really the most important thing.
If you, Chris, stop sharing the screen for a moment, I think there's some people who may have some questions. I think Frederick, you have a question.
Yeah, Louie and Chris, incredibly impressive, and I have seen some cuts from this earlier, and was totally blown away. So thank you for that. I think it's a fantastic way of communicating how serious the situation is. Just a quick question on funding. What sort of budget, what sort of funding are you looking at? You know, it has to be somewhat meaningful, I presume. So just to get an idea.
Sure. Yeah, we need $7.5 million is our target budget right now, and we're at about 3 million.
Okay, so it needs to be a bit grown up, the numbers, because otherwise it's not going to move.
Yeah, I mean, we can, if we had to, we could scale things back a little bit so to make sure we have a show. So we're doing it one way or another. We're stepping off the bridge and you know, making sure that the project is going to happen. So we're pushing hard on every level, and we have a lot of great conversations going. So we feel like the money's coming, but we're pushing on all fronts on that.
Okay.
You're getting some good suggestions in the chat. If anybody else has a question for Louie and Chris.
What was the figure that you mentioned? The budget you're missing?
We're about 4.5 million is what we're still short.
Okay.
I feel I should be running a telethon saying, Gary, you can do it. You can come up with those 4 million.
Like a telethon.
I think we could probably spread the word a bit. I'm thinking of a few people we could introduce you to.
Great. Thank you.
A couple of questions here in the chat. So it's projectingchange.org right now, links back to the OPS website, and we're in the process of building out that site currently. Got another question here of something we can share. As I mentioned before, we'll go ahead and repost a version of the deck that you saw to the Climate-Tech chat, the WhatsApp group. And let's see something here about that.
Sorry, did you see projectingchange.org? It goes to Oceanic Preservation Society, is that right?
Yes, that's correct. The Oceanic Preservation Society is Louie's nonprofit and foundation.
Oh, that was right. Sorry.
Yeah. So we'll be that site's being built out, so that will be up soon.
And I did put I hope it's the most recent deck into the chat there too. I don't know. Is that okay, Chris?
There we go. Yeah, so it's right there if anyone wants to download it right now.
So Chris, from my knowledge of quite a few people at Tonic, I think there'll be lots of interest in helping you out. Maybe arranging a talk like this to a Tonic group would be in place.
That would be great, Gotti. Yeah, we're game to get on any other group, calls and present anytime.
Apart from this, once you've solved this, Louie, what's the next big project that you're hungry to get your teeth into?
Boy, I'm working on about 9 films at the moment, and all of them are, for the social good. And I worked the contract so that we can use all the films to put up onto the building, just pieces of it. Obviously we're not going to show a 90-minute film, but so I'm doing a series for Netflix right now called Food 2.0. I'm doing a film on plastic pollution solutions. Plastic can be made out of almost anything organic. It doesn't have to be fossil fuels. And a lot of people don't know that. And boy, I just did a film with the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu, how do you find joy in a world full of sorrow? It's a beautiful film, and I'll be out in the next couple months. We're going to be at Tribeca and possibly Cannes. Doing a film on the Loser ecosystem. It's called The Last Place on Earth. It's about palm oil plantations and these four activists in Indonesia that are getting back the land for the wild. We call it The Last Place on Earth because it's the last place where wild tigers, rhinos, elephants, and orangutans are in the wild together. Doing a bunch of films on, not doing them all myself. I'm co-producing or executive producing. But it's exciting if you do this kind of work. One of the wonderful things about the Dalai Lama film is that it helped me realize what's really important about in America, we're chasing the wrong things for success. Big cars, big houses, fame, money, power. And once you achieve any of that, and I think everybody on this call is probably successful enough that once you maybe achieve something, but if it's not for the social good, it doesn't give you back anything. It doesn't give you lasting joy. Happiness is the stuff that you think is going to give you happiness, the stuff that comes from outside of you, but the stuff that really fulfills you is the stuff I think that everybody in this call is interested in. You're trying to solve big existential problems, communal problems that we've caused. And I think we've had this, to me, it's like this enormous, potential and opportunity to scale social change. There's so many the projects that we're working on that I want to put bits and pieces on the building to show the narrative. There's the first, one of the first things that we have to do is kind of address the cancer that got us into the situation in the first place. The great economist Adam Smith in 1776, he wrote a book called The Wealth of Nations, which they still teach principles of that in economic classes all around the world today. But in 1776, Adam Smith couldn't imagine an ocean where you could fish out all the fish. He couldn't imagine, how thick the atmosphere was and, how soon we'd full of greenhouse gases. So these externalities weren't factored into his supply and demand theory. And this is crashing the biosphere right now. So we have this, we'll talk about solutions to climate change at the building, but the first order of business is getting an alignment about what makes us human and how our madly chasing what doesn't give us happiness or success needs to be focused on first. So that to me, it's more than just solutions to climate change. It's solutions to social problems that transcend economic or even climate change. So that's the first thing that we try to do with our films is sort of break down almost like a boot camp, like a military boot camp of your ideas of what you think is the reality. And I'll say this is that, we figured out that the key to changing people's minds is to change their heart first. So the films that we tell are emotionally driven, they're science driven, but it's the two working in tandem together that really gets, people to want to change, to create action in their own lives afterwards. If like most Hollywood filmmakers, they look at success like butts and seats, $10 in a box of popcorn. That's like the objective to most, producers in Hollywood. Our objective is to change minds, to hearts and minds. So at the end of that 90 minutes that you have, that precious 90 minutes that you have in a film, you have an opportunity to change people's minds and hearts, which is the hardest thing in the world to do. But I think with these projection events and with the films that we do, I think we've unlocked the code. And to me, it's exciting to use this opportunity to help change the world. And I know that sounds crazy. I mean, I know we're all trying to change the world, but if you don't say it, I don't think it's going to happen without without intention. So this is, our intention is to change the world, at least, it's been called it's like when you're trying to change culture, it's like trying to change a big ship, right? But just these small little rudder moves can swing people, it can swing the vessel in the right direction. And that's kind of what we're trying to do with these projections.
Louie, some of the projects you've taken on have annoyed some rather powerful organizations and individuals. What's the worst that's happened in terms of people trying to stop you in your tracks?
Well, certainly all of them. I feel like if you're not pissing off some people or institutions or governments, you're not, we're not doing our job. But certainly when we, our first film, The Cove, we got a lot of wrath by. And here's the thing, like the Japanese government gave us a lot of grief, but it's like martial arts. They have a campaign, and you try to use that campaign against them. Like, for instance, they were saying, in Japan, they were saying, well, this is culinary imperialism. We eat dolphins and whales, and you eat cows, pigs, and chickens. And you're claiming that, whales and dolphins are pretty smart, but, so are pigs. And I say, you're absolutely right. But if our pigs had 5,000 times more mercury than allowed by Japanese law, I would hope somebody from a different culture would tell us, because your culture is not doing it. You can go to the Japanese Ministry of Health site, and they give recommendations of how much poison, toxic dolphin meat a pregnant woman should eat. And mercury is the most toxic non-radioactive element in the world. And there's 5,000 times more mercury in some of those samples than fish. But of course, dolphins aren't fish, they're mammals, so they escape the standards for toxicity. So we try to use, so when I talk to the Japanese press about this issue, I don't mention, how sentient and intelligent dolphins and whales are. I try to use the word mercury in every single sentence so they can't edit me out. So to me, it's just strategy. We look at this, what we do is very science-based. Like when we looked at the animal rights movement, or we know that eating vegetables is far more healthy for you. If you look at the 5 areas in the world where people live the longest without chronic disease, the so-called blue zones, 95% of their calories come from a whole foods, plant-based diet. You're gonna live longer. You live 10 to 12 years longer than your parents did because of healthy eating without chronic disease. People weren't getting this message because they felt that to be strong, they had to eat meat to have strength, endurance, and virility, right? And so we thought there's a group called the Vegan Mafia in America. They spend hundreds of millions of dollars, and they organize groups like PETA and Sea Shepherd, and they're putting a lot of money into these efforts for the wrong reasons, because they found out that they did a white paper. Only 7% of the population is going to change behavior based on animal rights or the environment. And so, because you're fighting against this mindset that you need to eat animals to be strong and healthy, and when in fact it's the reverse. So we looked at the data and said, well, people will listen to aspirational people telling them. Guys are marketed to primarily around the world to think, to be big and strong and healthy and have virility, you need to eat meat. So we used athletes, professional athletes who had made the conversion to deliver the message. Because if you use a vegan to do it, a traditional vegan with maybe purple hair and a nose ring, they're not going to, a guy looks at another guy and says, I don't want to look like you, but I want to look like them. So we used we use the data to show, okay, guys will listen to other athletes, and males are the primarily inhibitors of doing the diet because we're so heavily marketed to. And then, like I said, we did this massive shift, the business shift, the whole mindset of cultures are starting to shift. We're just putting jumper cables on this idea with a new set of facts, a new set of reframing. And that's what we did with all of our projects. We look at the data and we think, okay, how can we tell the story in a way that we can penetrate the mindset of the popular culture? You don't want to make a movie or do a projection event to make yourself feel right and good. You need to do an event that makes you effective. And there's a difference, so we have to tell, first of all, an entertaining story. First rule of filmmaking is don't be boring. You're entertaining people. So you make it interesting, you tell it exciting, you have your facts, and you tell it in a structural way so that at the end of the day, our North Star is changing the mindset of a population. It's not butts and seats. It's not how much money we're going to make. That's our North Star. We do everything that we do is like, how do you shift culture? And how do you do it thoughtfully? Because we're running out of time. We're running out of the runway that we need to switch culture around. And it just, to me, it's just a matter of like using the right levers, telling the right story, using the right, words and pictures and music to shift consciousness. And it can be done. It's not it's tricky, but it goes against the mindset of how films are usually done. Because we want to do films that I got the information, I'm gonna pump you out the information, but that's not how you shift consciousness. People get their hearts moved first, and then they've discovered the data to support what their heart feels. James Cameron, who was the executive producer, like Chris said on the Game Changer, said, like, I heard what all the people were saying about the environment and animals, but I didn't care because I thought that I needed to have, animals to be big, strong, and be healthy. And, and then once he made the shift, he said, oh my God, then it allowed the doorway through so he could say, oh my God, the way I've been eating really has been affecting the environment. There's billions of animals that are leading a life of suffering for this lie that we've been telling ourselves. So in the same way in the climate space, we've been told this lie that alternative energy isn't scalable. We've been told this lie that we have to have plastics to for the pandemic, it's saving us. When in fact, look at the pandemic right now. I mean, that's the last 7 pandemics we have been caused by, us going into the territory of animals that we eat. For racing extinction, we went to Guangzhou where SARS was 2002, 2003. Remember the first SARS epidemic came out of Guangzhou. It's because they take animals out of the wild, like bats. They actually eat bats, where the coronavirus is thought to be found from, right? They sell bats in the market with this it's called, in Chinese, it's called zhenbu. It's the notion that you can get from that animal the attributes that it has. So a bat can see at night. So people eat bats to improve their night vision. It's, we call this in America like a really batshit idea, right? A batshit crazy idea. It sounds crazy, but also look at we have American zhenbu or Western zhenbu. The idea that that you eat animals, that's also a kind of crazy idea, that you need to eat, all protein originates with plants. We're just eating, the middleman, the animals that the animals eat for plants. And so, and that's destroying our health. It's destroying our longevity. It's destroying the environment. If you look at the eating of animals, it's the primary cause of freshwater pollution, one of the biggest cause of habitat destruction, the biggest cause of species extinction, the biggest cause of ocean dead zones. We're eating animals where it's destroying the 14.5% of greenhouse gases come from the eating of animals. So we also have this crazy idea, this batshit belief that's helping destroy the planet. So I'm going to get off my soapbox right now. Maybe Chris, is there anything else you want to add?
No, I think that's it. I mean, the last thing, just in terms of the mission with projecting change is, we just see ourselves as one part of a growing movement. And really our job is to, sort of help galvanize the collective action and movement. And with the project, with the projections in New York, we really want to show a representative voice of humanity. And so we're being very inclusive, and we want to bring all these perspectives. And then the last thing that I didn't mention yet is that we have a conversation to actually take it to the COP and project it on the outside of the Scottish Event Center, right where the COP is happening. So we kind of look at that as taking the collective voice of humanity and serving it up to our world leaders at COP so that they have to listen. And we're also working on trying to get probably like a 1 minute, 1.5 minute video edit as part of the official program at COP through the UN, so that the world leaders have to watch our show whether they want to or not.
Louie, Chris, thank you for sharing. That was extraordinary. Didn't expect a masterclass with Louie Psihoyos. Chris Lejeune and Louie, thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks for your time on us today.
Thank you. Thank you for letting us take up most of the hour. Appreciate it.
Best of luck with projecting change, and we'll see how we can be helpful.
Thank you so much. Cheers. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks.